So I go live in a second. And welcome to Evidence-Based Audio number 185, and this is Not Even Wrong about tonewood. I know you guys are so sick of hearing all this tonewood stuff, but this is the unsinkable rubber duck and the gift that just keeps giving. And again, I don't really, it's not killing me if extremely rich people are losing or wasting their money buying junk they don't need. I'm worried about people who don't really have so much disposable income wasting their money on junk that makes no difference and wasting too much of their energy and their emotions, their time on things that don't matter when that stuff is all limited. So, that's why I harp on this stuff. And that's why we're going to talk about this other stuff here. We're over on the gear page right now, and you go to a thread called Cheap versus Expensive Audio Interface. He says, I'm looking to use plugins instead of an amp, and I'd like to know if there's a big difference between the UAD Volt 1 and the Behringer UMC 22 audio interfaces, and if it's overall worth investing for a more expensive interface if I plan on using it daily with my headphones, speakers, and guitar. Hey, Poo Ninja. I'm mainly concerned about the white noise issue of these devices since my PreSonus Audio Box 96, we're dealing with that issue. White noise shouldn't be an issue on any modern preamp. I have some trouble with some of the PreSonus stuff, but not because of noise. I think it's more because of seems to be abandoned. I don't know if some of the older drivers still work. I know I had a couple devices that didn't make it to Windows 10, but that's kind of a long time ago. My issues with UA go back a long ways too, but I think they never really were addressed. So anyway, my thing with if you go on, let's just do this because if I go onto Behringer's website, and I think we're supposed to say Behringer, but when you look at the interfaces, UM2, UMC 22, here's their software, and you see ASIO for all. This doesn't have a real USB, a real ASIO driver. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, if I'm on Mac, it doesn't matter. It matters. It's not like going to Mac turns your Behringer into an RME. And notice I'm not really talking about sound quality right now. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit. But I know you guys think it's this huge difference. But if you've actually tested this to yourself, you know that while there are measurable differences, if you're honest, it's not something that's going to make a difference for most applications. It may be that for some really quiet stuff, it's going to matter. And maybe it can't handle as much total, but it's pretty flat. And that's really what counts. And it's pretty low distortion, and that's what counts. Except for you guys that claim about this character or whatever. But anyway, so you're seeing this right here where we got a ASIO for all driver. You do not want that. That's not a real driver. And again, I don't care if it's a Mac or a PC. You want something that has actual ASIO drivers, even if you're not going to use ASIO drivers on the Mac. People say you don't need drivers on a Mac. We've gone through this. We've gone through this on this show with the experts. That's not true. They're still drivers. You just don't necessarily put them in yourself. They could be class compliant or whatever. But different interfaces still have different latencies, and there's a reason for that. So if I look at this UMC driver here, see, we're up at 459. The one, 530 actually. So maybe this one works a lot better. For the longest time, everybody's been going back to get the 4.11 drivers because a lot of these drivers were broken. The drivers on here are almost the same drivers, almost identical between the smallest of these Behringer interfaces, whatever, to the Midas M32, the most costly of their interfaces, which is actually also a digital mixer or whatever. They're the same drivers. They have the same problems, same speed, same everything. So that's the first thing, is I don't get one of these that doesn't have an actual ASIO driver. I know it's a little bit more money for the two. Let's see, what's the next one up here? He's a 202 HD. It's a little bit more money than the UMC 22, but it's worth it. Just get that one. Sorry. Okay, so let's go on. Somebody responds with, "You get what you pay for, but both will do the job. Noise issue, most likely ground loop." Okay. You guys know how much I hate "you get what you pay for," because it's just not true. It's not even close to true. Okay, let's look. Neve audio interface. Yeah. So let's look what I said here. You don't get what you pay for, not even close. Compare an RME Digiface USB versus Neve's new interface. It's like 4 times the price or whatever. Okay, so the Digiface USB that I'm using is like a $500 unit. You would need a ADAT whatever output device, but regardless, sorry, this is like only 2 times this price, whatever. But it's $1,200 for this Neve one, 2 channels. That's all you get. Does it have ADAT in on the back? Let's see. Sorry, I'm a little bit sniffly. Oh, it does have ADAT in, so maybe you can get 10 channels out of this thing. But it's $1,200. You know, if you really want these mic preamps, then this might actually be a deal. But funny that they can fit these mic preamps in this tiny little box, and yet everybody else claims you need these giant racks in order to stick them in, which we know isn't true because the original console's space for those mic preamps wasn't that big. So most of you guys are just full of crap. Anyway, but all that said, these things, I'm almost sure, I think I saw a show with Glenn was doing that they have the Vesicon, the Sycon, whatever it is, however you pronounce it. I know Vin Curliano pronounces it Vesicon. It has those drivers, the same drivers as everything else, including the Behringers. So you're not getting what you pay. It's not like you're getting something different. If you really think the mic preamps are that different, and I know there's absolute Neve nuts out there. I used to be one of them. That might make it worth it, but in terms of drivers and stuff, no. You can get a way better driver for less money. So I said, compare an RME Digiface USB versus Neve's new interface. It's like 4 times the price. I got that wrong. It's like 2 times the price or whatever. Using the same craptastic drivers as Behringer even. I'd stay away from the lowest tier of Behringer interfaces that do not advertise ASIO drivers. This would include the UMC 22, the one the guy was looking at. Spend the $10 more on the Behringer 202 HD, which has the real ASIO driver. Ignore the incoming cries of, but on a Mac, you don't need drivers. First of all, because it's not true. And secondly, it's not like switching to a Mac turns a Behringer's round-trip latency into an RME's round-trip latency. And I put the caveat on there that from time to time, there are actual ASIO drivers available from Behringer themselves even for some of the interfaces that don't advertise them, but they're hidden and often have pretty big problems and not supported and rarely updated. The 202 on up have the same type of Vesicon drivers that most of the bigger money you get what you pay for interfaces use, which is true. I think SSL uses the same one. So he's saying, I was thinking of buying a UMC 22 for 35 pounds. Is it really worth spending 50 pounds more on the 202 HD just because the drivers, or should I look for something else? They shouldn't be that difference in price. I thought it was like a 2 to 5 pound difference. And I know because of the chip shortage, we're having some major troubles, but somebody says, if all you're gonna do is play guitar with one of these, pretty much any of them will work. If you plan on recording more than one guitar track or two, then comparing them becomes a little bit more important. That's probably true. Now, Dr. Frankencopter, he always interjects when it comes into DIs and stuff. So he says, for your application, probably the best thing to focus on is the quality of the DI. Maybe having a good quality external DI into a cheaper interface is the best way to go. And we've actually tested, how many times on the show, DIs, and it turns out that some of the cheapest DIs out there are the very best you can get. They test as well as the best you possibly can get. And they may have less interference rejection, which might matter for some applications, but they actually have more interference rejection than some of the more expensive ones. So take a look. The Old House Scott says, well, the old saying is buy once, cry once. I agree with Pipeline Audio. I think you'll want to get at least a 202 HD level for an interface. Plus, if you're just starting out with the amp sims, you'll want to give yourself a fighting chance for success without your interface being its own obstacle to hurdle. Yeah, and that's big time. You want an ASIO driver. Also, you want low enough latency. Remember, I'm not a latency purist, and although I make fun of them, I know plenty of people who are extremely sensitive to latency, and they're not kidding. The guys I'm really making fun of are the ones who pretend that they are, but they'd been running 20 milliseconds latency live for years and not known it, and then now they're going to complain about 6 milliseconds on an interface. So those are the ones I'm really making fun of. But it's true. If you're extremely sensitive to latency, this stuff matters. And so I said, if you're on OS X, I say maybe the UMC is okay, but really I'd probably be looking for a use Focusrite Solo or one of those things. Check the... Okay, so when Dr. Frankenkopter's talking about DIs, the thing I'm worried about on a lot of these interface DIs is whether or not they clip. A lot of them can't handle the level of a strong pickup. A lot of things can't handle the level of a strong pickup. And we were talking about that a couple weeks ago, right? When we're talking about wirelesses. This is a joke. It's not like EMGs and Deathbuckers and bare knuckles and some of these hotter wound pickups don't exist. Lots of people use them. Why in the hell do we have so many guitar specific advertised these same guitars? In fact, you'll see ads for some of these wireless units for like these metal guys with EMG and blackout pickups that can absolutely not handle the level of these pickups. It's to me, it's false advertising. And this happens a lot with the onboard DIs. And who is it? Is it Dr. Frankenkopf? They always give me crap for calling them DIs if it's onboard. But the original Focusrites definitely couldn't handle like EMGs, at least the stronger, like 85, 89, 707, things like that. Might be able to handle 81. I don't know. But the newer ones, they seem to handle it. But it's something to think about. And remember, the very good DIs are very cheap, so it's not like that should be a hurdle. Let's see. Somebody says, if the primary use is playing guitar via reamping through plugins, I suspect you'll be much happier using an interface that has ASIO drivers to do lower latency. I don't know why. If you're reamping, I don't care what the latency is, right? You're not playing it at that time. Those who claim that 1 millisecond of latency is the same as 1 foot of sonic time of flight are only half right. While the duration is the same, your perception is much different due to the lack of audio cues. I don't know if that's really true. You can easily play your guitar with a cab 20 foot away, but playing with the 20 milliseconds latency is pretty frustrating. If you want to see for yourself, add delay with no dry signal, so your round trip latency is 20 milliseconds to give it a shot. Now, it's a special number right there, 20 milliseconds, right? That 20 milliseconds is the bare minimum, and I don't even think most people have ever achieved that when you're playing, or at least back in the day when people were playing guitar through their iPhones and iPads, through like the IK Multimedia iRigs and all those things. The minimum I could measure with the fastest drivers that I could find at the time on the iPhone, aside from like an RME Babyface or something, which nobody was using, including the Apogees, it was 20 or 21 milliseconds round trip latency. So a lot of these people that are claiming they're really sensitive to latency, they've been playing through that much latency. And so keep that in mind. So the original poster asks, what about the UAD Volt? I've heard that's better compared to Focusrite. And you know what I say? What better in what ways? It measures it flatter, less noise. What is better? But you know me personally, I have not a good relationship with Universal Audio. So I said I have a very, very bad taste for UAD stuff and the way they used to treat their customers, but that's personal. There's a lot of hype on the UAD stuff, but objectively, I've never seen a test showing their stuff better than anything else meant to do the same function. If you're talking about USB, there is RME, there's everything else with an ASIO driver, and then there's stuff without ASIO drivers. That's really how it shakes out. You want fast stuff on USB, you're getting an RME. Unless you buy into all the mostly unsubstantiated claims about actual analog quality of different interfaces, it's all about the drivers. And like I say, if I'd be surprised if most people could ABX test between these interfaces. I don't think they can, but they'll definitely be able to tell the difference between the drivers. So the one that eats the least CPU, the one that crashes the least, the one with the lowest latency, that matters. UAD's USB drivers, as far as I've seen, are no better and likely made by the same company. SSL's is, and I think Neve as Behringer, Focusrite, and the rest. And so people are talking about the Quantum 2626. And also he's asking about, Ola has done some reviews on the UAD interface. Focusrite Solo is currently out of stock. Interesting, but of course they are. Could you suggest any alternatives? And, I talk about, some of these reviewers, in quotes or whatever, are paid to review the products. We pay companies to do this. I'm not going to lie. That's how it works. So, my policy back in the day was, I was going to, if you sent me a product for review, I was going to review it. And that means whether it's a good review or a bad review, it's going out there. And I was pleasantly surprised that a lot of companies will send it to you anyway. They're like, here, go ahead. If you don't like it, please at least let us know ahead of time so maybe we can fix it or maybe we can address your problem. And lots of times things get fixed because of that. So I appreciate companies like that. I think some companies appreciate people like me who are going to do that. But at the same time, companies like mine also have a need for reviewers that we know what they're going to do. I mean, we're just being very honest here. So I was suggesting alternatives. I said a Focusrite 2i2, and then talking about Audient. And I say, as much as there seems to be silly hype about the company to the point where I hesitate to recommend it, but Audient's new Evo line looks cool. And if we go to that, let me see, Audient audio interface. Let's go to Sweetwater. So they have the ones that everybody knows about, like the ID14s and things. But there's new Evos. Let's see, there was a one that was really cheap. See, these are all kind of expensive. Here's the Evo 4 right here. $129. And I mean, it could be crappy, but I don't have any reason why it would. It should have the same drivers as anything else. It looks like it has a 2 mic inputs and a DI input. I don't know what the 4 is, but it says two Evo 4 preamps, a JFET instrument input, and ultra low latency performance. I wonder what that means. Smart gain automatic level setting function, that kind of scares me, but I'm sure you could turn it off. I hope. Yeah, just press the smart gain button. It looks like you can turn it off. And loop back on this little cheap thing for $129. So I have a feeling this is probably a pretty cool little interface for pretty cheap, but again, this is nowhere near as cheap as some of that Behringer stuff was. I know it's more expensive now. Let's see this. So this Evo 4, it's actually pretty interesting here. I wonder if they're worried that it's going to compete with some of their other interfaces. So there's an Evo 8 for $199. Looks like it's got 4 mic pre's. That's nice. Loopback. I wonder how much loopback these things actually have. So there's one called the Evo 16 for $500. Let's see what's on here. Could be like the new Motu 8 pre. Yeah, 8 mic preamps, I think. Yeah. 8 mic preamps. 2 8 ins? No. Is this really going to be a 24 channel interface? 24 in, 24 out. Nice. $500 and analog. I mean, I want the RME drivers, and I'm betting that the DSP mixer or whatever on here is probably going to be better on the RME stuff, but this might just do it. This is actually kind of nice. Eight channels. You could carry this around for most things, and then when you got to add more mic preamps, you just put on some 8-at mic preamps. Yeah, or mic preamps with the analog to digital converters on 8-at. I wonder, UI control system, motion UI control system, high resolution TFT LCD screen. No, I don't really want that. I want the I'm wondering what the audio interface does. It have its own mixer in there? Monitor control, audio loopback, and a word clock output. Maybe we should get one of these and take a look at it. Let me see if I can do that. This actually looks pretty good. But again, this isn't really for what the original poster wanted. He needs something. He's looking for something kind of cheap. So I think that Evo 4 maybe. But let's take a look at the Behringer stuff real quick. And so the 202 is from Sweetwater, is $80. The UM2 is $60. If my mixer has a 2-channel USB out, should I get a standalone interface? Carbon. I don't think so, unless you need it. I mean, do you want to have more than 2 channels? Then yeah. But if all you ever need is 2 channels in and 2 channels out, I would keep it. Almost guaranteed that that mixer has the same Thesicon drivers as every other device out there besides the RME stuff. So this UM2, which I don't see a UMC22, but the UM2 here. Oh, here's a UMC22 right there. Okay, let's see. UMC22. Let's go 50 to 100. UM2, UM202. Okay, yeah. See, it's only $10 more for the UMC202 than the UMC22. So pay that $10 and get the ASIO driver. Okay, so I said any of the PreSonus boxes that work with your current hardware, just be aware that they tend to have some abandonware. The Behringer units, until I get real drums to mic, yeah. The Behringer units with ASIO drivers, Zoom interfaces, the Steinberg ones, I wouldn't pay extra for the knee versions, but if it's the same price, sure. The Steinberg, like UR22s and stuff, they seem to be, just because you buy your drivers from the same company, some people have them do better things than others. So that's something to remember. The ones I've held in my hands and know for sure are the Focusrite USB models, the Behringer 202, 404, 204, etc., the Behringer X32, Midas M32, Behringer XR18, and pretty much any RME. The problem right now is a giant global chip shortage and then a fire at a converter factory in Japan who made most of our interfaces converters. There's a lot of talk on here that it's a simple swap to switch from AKM to Burr Brown or whatever converters, but I talk to these manufacturers every week and they say that's just not true. They're responding by actually removing some products from their lines, and if you go to Sweetwater, you can actually see that. You'll notice that they might still show all the interfaces. Like let's just pick Focusrite for now, and I'm not, there's no condemnation or anything right here, but if you remember, there was a lot of different sizes of Focusrites. Okay, let's click the in stock thing. Okay, so some of these things we thought, oh, it's not going to be in stock anymore, but I think some of these are not going to be with us anymore. Some of the Claret stuff seemed to have gone away. I know they're showing it right here. I don't think some of this stuff is no longer current and is just not available. I think we're going to see the lines shrink. We're probably going to see the Solo and the 2i2 maybe, and then go on to the 18i20 from there. And one time I heard like 50 weeks out for new chips, 70 weeks out. It's insane what's going on. So, we have some problems. Somebody says they got a UAD Volt and they have 0 complaints. Fine. Somebody else says my 404 HD has a loose headphone jack, so I'm using that as an excuse to pick up a Motu M4. While the M4 is not nearly as expensive as something RME, there's no situation where I'd need more than 4 or even 2 inputs. I get the M2, but I read the M4 on paper has slightly better specs. I doubt you'd hear them, but that's okay. It'd be interesting to see whether it sounds better than the 404 HD. I doubt it really. Which on the other than the loose jack has been a good unit, both with records over phones and on my speakers. I'll probably start using a headphone extension cable that stays plugged in to avoid strain on the new jack. That's not a bad idea. If the jack's bolted on there, though, I wouldn't worry for the most part. Wear and tear like this is one reason I'd buy new personally, especially considering I'll probably use whatever I buy for at least several years. Granted, I'm as handy as a thumb. Some of you can likely fix stuff up as good as new, but you shouldn't have to. You're right. And so I say, hopefully the M2, M4 drivers are a whole different animal than their current flagship USB drivers, like those for the 896, for instance. Those are absolutely horrible and unstable. Shame, too, as Moto used to go neck and neck with RME. And sad, because we've talked about that on here before. I'm talking about the IK Multimedia AXIO, but I think that uses ASIO for all. Maybe we can check right here. IK AXIO. Let's see what the see if we can find the downloads for this without having to sign up all this nonsense crap. AXIO drivers. Maybe they got actual ASIO drivers now. That'd be nice. But again, they're probably gonna be the Vesicon drivers. Let's see. They're talking about getting an iRig 2 HD. And I said, last I checked, iRig stuff was all using ASIO for all. Do they have actual drivers now? I haven't really heard. It's a problem, when the guy's talking at the beginning about the white noise thing, he's saying, honestly, that white noise you're complaining about is probably a ground issue. Does it make that white noise with nothing plugged into it? Get your computer and any pedals and anything else in the signal channel in the same outlet. And it could be noise from another device. I don't see PreSonus as making any more noise at that objectionable a level as anything else. Let's see. And here we go. The PreSonus Audio Box 96 interface I had has been sold because I couldn't get my main PC to recognize it, and I doubt that it's a grounding issue since my other audio devices don't produce any static. That's my thing about when I was talking about the abandonware, so keep that in mind. Somebody's talking about my complaint about the new Motu USB drivers. He says, I've been using the 16A as my main interface for 8 years now. Excellent, but I've only ever been a Mac user. Again, it doesn't matter. And I show, assuming if you're talking about the USB Motu audio installer, and I show this latest version made in 2017, it's pretty bad round trip latency, even compared to other Vesicon setups. Hopefully more stable on the Mac, though the latency would be even worse, most likely. And that's true. Every case that I've ever found, the latency is going to be higher on the Mac than it will be on Windows. If there's a difference. Sometimes there's no difference. Stability for it on Windows is sadly garbage. And I'm sad about that because, I've got an 896 Mark III that was on the air live for 3 years straight, never turned off. And that's commendable. It finally croaked. I sent it to Motu. They sent it back fixed for free. So it's sad that if these drivers were any better, I wouldn't even be looking at anything else. That would be my interface forever. And I say it. This is coming from someone who has been responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of purchases of earlier Motu interfaces. I have. I take responsibility for it, but I also take credit for it. I still love the company, but even Jim Roseberry, I think, would echo how bad the Motu audio installer USB drivers are, especially compared to their earlier drivers' reputation. And luckily, Jim Roseberry sees it and says, I totally agree. I used to run Motu interfaces, 896 HD, 8 Pre, etc., with great performance, had many clients running them, and made many referrals, just like me. Back then, performance was equal to RME, round-trip latency, and rock solid. Once Motu added onboard DSP, round-trip latency increased to the point where, to me, it was distracting. In my opinion, it's been downhill ever since. For super low round-trip latency, I currently recommend either PreSonus Quantum series for simple scenarios or Antelope series connected via Thunderbolt for more elaborate scenarios. Both yield 1 millisecond round-trip latency at 96K using 32 sample ASIO buffer size. Okay. Okay, what was he saying? I remember trying to find some artifacts in a mix once during mixing. It sounded like another song playing, maybe radio interference on something. After much headaches and eventually muting everything. Let's see if there's more to the story. Let's see. So, and I'm asking Jim, the quantum interface needs to be Thunderbolt, right? Where we are at on Thunderbolt on Windows, and I'm still asking that question. Where are we at with Thunderbolt on Windows? I keep seeing conflicting things. Can it be added to a motherboard that didn't come from it? And I heard a few things from RME why they aren't really bothering with Thunderbolt. But if it's viable, I'd like to try, because there are a lot of interfaces. And Thunderbolt's promise was PCI on a wire, right? And that's really what I want to see. I mean, why aren't we there yet? And maybe we are, but there were so many false and bad starts that people just don't believe it. I don't know. Let's see. So Punin's just saying it was still there. I cut the power of the monitor, still there. There was an ice cream truck outside. So you're hearing acoustic interference, huh? Or was it actually the ice cream truck's broadcast thing actually getting through your junk? But sometimes, we think it's an electrical problem. It's actually an acoustic problem. So I don't understand this. This guy says if you use your interface as a sound card, there's going to be a difference depending on preamps and specs. If you just use an interface with no sound card, it doesn't make much difference which you choose. Analog to digital converters just take the signal and change them into data bits. And let's see. I say most of us use interface and sound card pretty much interchangeably. What do you mean by using these two terms differently? And that's the thing. I hate, I don't like these pedantic debates or whatever, but to me, a sound card is an interface and an interface is a sound card. Maybe there's some difference. Maybe you want to make a distinction, but to me, it's a distinction without a difference. But just real quick, let me talk about what Jim Roseberry is saying about Thunderbolt. I know we got a bunch of different things going on in this thread. Sorry about that. He's saying the Quantum is Thunderbolt only, Antelope is Thunderbolt or USB. I'm not going to talk about Antelope, okay? We've talked about Antelope before. Thunderbolt works great under Windows 10. Anyone who says Thunderbolt doesn't work well under Windows 10 doesn't know what they're talking about or doing. And we saw what happened when I tried to talk about Jim Roseberry's advice in the Reaper users group and got a whole bunch of threads deleted, and I almost got banned out of pretty much my own group. Whatever. He says, I've been running Thunderbolt audio interfaces for the past 5 years. UFX Plus, Apollo 8, Satellite, Quantum, Antelope Audio have all been rock solid. Thunderbolt can be more complex to configure versus USB, but if you tend to all the details, it performs great. As mentioned, the best drivers yield 1 millisecond total round-trip latency at 96K using a 32 sample ASIO buffer size. I got no interest in using 96K. I suppose if things ever get really a lot faster and we don't have to have half HALF our channel count for that, but 32 samples is a hard one. I mean, are computers ever going to get fast enough where they're going to be able to process all your plugins at that speed? I don't know. So I want to keep talking about that thing, but let's go. Jim is still singing the praises. Quantum is by far the best audio interface that PreSonus has released. It's like RME, you never give it a second thought. The only downside is there's no onboard DSP. So I don't know if it's got no mixer or no DSP at all. No onboard signal routing, no effects, no loopback recording. Okay, well, that's kind of a deal killer for me right there. But I definitely don't want to use the Antelope instead. So I don't know. Somebody says the best recorded tone I've ever got was through a Steinberg UR12, which I think for you guys in the US costs less than $100. I think it's pretty much like the Scarlett Solo. So go check that one out. So this guy's answering me when I asked him. Most of us use the interface and sound card pretty much interchangeably. What do you mean by using these two terms differently? And this absolutely makes no sense. So he says, I don't know. I principle of charity thing. I don't think this guy's talking down to me. So the interface started out as an analog to digital converter to route audio to a computer sound card. No, it didn't. An interface is an interface. A sound card is an interface. An interface is a sound card. I mean, if I go all the way back to Sound Blasters or whatever, what do you want to call the first sound card? Sound Blaster, maybe? Something like that. Some of those had mic inputs. I think almost all of them did. So that had an analog to digital converter, and it had a digital to analog converter to play the sound back out. So it wasn't the interface started out as an analog to digital converter to route audio to a computer sound card. The computer sound card had an analog to digital converter and a digital to analog converter on it. And let me go to the next sentence, because none of these sentences don't seem to be compatible with each other either. Sound cards with better sonic characteristics were added into the interface hardware soon after. Wait, is the sound card the interface, or is the interface the sound card? Today, most interfaces have sound cards instead of using the card on your computer. I have no idea what this guy's trying to say. He sends a link to AD converter versus audio interface. That's, again, that's two different things. Could be the same thing, but in general, that's two different things. And so I just said, look, sound cards had either ADCs or DACs, so analog to digital converters or digital to analog converters, or both since the beginning. They were interfaces. This post doesn't really make sense. All interfaces have sound cards because interfaces are sound cards. I don't want to get into a Steve McRae pedantic battle here or whatever, but I don't see what we're talking about. And somebody else, again, we're talking about this price, get what you pay for. And how many times, look, I'm not going to be stuck record how many times we've actually tested this stuff, and it all looks pretty much the same. A high quality preamp usually costs more. Why scrimp on something that will impede your ability to sound your best? None of these, I don't care, the cheapest Behringer one, even on that UMC 22, is not going to, the mic pre is not going to impede your ability to sound your best. It's just not. Sorry. If that's your problem, something else is broken. And so there's more of these, these poor guys that they're, you need a bigger interface and whatever. And everybody's telling you, no, spend the money, spend more money, spend more. You don't need to. Come on. I'm not going to, I think we've done enough on this topic. So you can talk about you guys' favorite subject, which I'm sure you're so sick of. And I'm scared to do this one because you know that, sadly, politics has gotten so much in the way of science, and there are certain people that you're not allowed to disagree with, because if you do, you're actually attacking them, or it's violence, or it's some kind of evil thing that you're not supposed to do. But I'm sorry, when you make a science claim, and this thing says Guitar Science 101, tap testing tonewood. Okay, let's just play this real quick. Let's have a listen. Let me know if you guys can't hear this.
When you're making or commissioning a guitar, the first thing you're going to want to think about is wood choice. There are actually only a certain number of timbers that you can use for guitar making.
Okay. You probably do want to choose the wood right away. You want to make sure you can screw into it without it stripping all the time, or other mechanical problems. You want to make sure that it's not going to just bust apart on you. You want to make sure you can bend it enough that you need to, or whatever. There's all these mechanical concerns, and a lot of times you want it to look a certain way. Right?
And these are called tonewoods.
No. There are certain woods you can make guitars out of, but they're not called tonewoods. They're just called wood. Tonewoods are what you marketing guys use to claim that there's certain woods that sound a certain way. But you can make you can make guitars out of softwoods. It's done all the time. Let's see. What are you saying? You can't hear it? Yeah. Science has measures that are repeatable because of physics. And that's what we're going to get into, because a sample size of 1 is not science.
Now, Mother Nature has kindly ensured that each individual tonewood has its own aesthetic and sonic property.
Nope. Okay. So here we go. She's making some serious claims here with nothing to back them up. I could easily get the exact same size. Give me all 3 dimensions, 2 pieces of wood of the same species of tree. In fact, I will make this guarantee, and I will bet any guitar I own over it, that I can make 2 of the exact same size cuts of the same exact tree. Not the same species of tree, the same exact tree. And I can take that piece of wood, make a wooden xylophone like that Paul Reed Smith Knucklehead video, and I could get 2 different sounds out of that exact same size, and I guarantee it. And most of you guys out there, you can think of ways that you can make these things sound different really easily and still both be wood that you would still use for making a guitar. And anyway.
So when you're dreaming up your perfect guitar, you really do have a lot to mix and match and choose from. Now, when I was doing my training, the first thing I did was just pick up loads of different pieces of wood and do something called a tap test. Now,
Tap tests are like, if you ever seen dowsers, like they say they're going to find your dead ancestors or gold on your property or maybe water or oil. And they hold these sticks. Usually they have like they call it like a divining rod, and they'll hold sticks like in a cross. And then they'll pretend like, they feel something pulling on it, or maybe the sticks point straight or something. It's like when you watch people playing with the Ouija board. It's funny that blind people on a Ouija board get totally different results than people that can see, right? Some of this, when you're being honest, is called the idiomotor effect. You can look that up. I'm a proud J-reffer. We like to talk about this stuff. But most of the time, it's just dishonest. And when these things get tested, it's just funny because at first, a lot of times, like dowsers and stuff, they'll go, oh, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. I failed. But give them a week and they've come up with a million reasons why the test wasn't any good and why this magical spiritual energy wasn't captured or whatever. Tonewood tap testing, when you see it, it's like watching a chiropractor try to justify their nonsense. It's just, they're just these magical rituals that they have no reason to think they work. And they just perform, and it's like a performative dance. Maybe it sounds good. I don't know. I mean, if your wood has a bunch of cracks in it, it's probably going to sound different. But give me two different pieces of the same species of wood, and I bet you they sound as different as two different species of wood.
As a luthier, obviously I have access to a lot of tonewood in my workshop, and I've picked out this really nice redwood that I'm going to do a demo for you on. What you want to do is pinch the wood about 80% of the way down with your dominant hand.
And this is just like, you guys ever seen iridology? Is that what it's called? Iridology. It's kind of like acupuncture. Like they all pretend like there's this chi super network information superhighway going through your body. But even though they all make these grandiose claims, oh, you have to put it right here and put the nail in or the screw in or pin or whatever in this one spot, they all think it's a different spot. Nobody can agree where these chakra lines are. And it's just, they speak with such authority, yet they have nothing to back up any of this stuff. And so here's iridology. And I hate that Wikipedia calls things alternative medicines. It's not an alternative medicine. It's just bullshit. Medicine, if it works, it's just called medicine. If it doesn't work, it's not alternative medicine. It's bullshit. Oh yeah. So this guy's saying he's doused for water. See, I don't know how the hell that's supposed to work. Some utilities, yeah, it's true. Some utilities do use dowsers. I've seen it. Yeah, there's actually a well drilling company over here who will always hire a dowser to second guess these things, but we've never seen it work better than chance. I mean, if you actually look into when this stuff has been tested, so far we can't get it past chance. So let's just read this iridology thing. It's a technique whose proponents claim that patterns, colors, and other characteristics of the iris can be examined to determine information about this patient's systemic health. Practitioners match their observations to iris charts, which divide the iris into zones that correspond to specific parts of the human body. Iridologists see eyes as windows into the body's state of health. So basically, they look at your eyeballs and they say they can tell about your liver. Well, you know what? If you're jaundiced, you kind of could. But there's a lot of claims they make. And most of the time, this is... this is too kind. No, normally they use iridology to tell you what your future, who you're going to marry and all this kind of stuff. So anyhow, let's get back to this.
And for me, that's my right hand. You then want to bring the wood round to your opposite ear. And I want to keep this hand nice and loose because I might...
So look, there's so much ritual involved. This is almost like those wine tasters, what do you call sommeliers or whatever, where when they took the best paid wine testers in the world and they couldn't even tell the difference between red wine and white wine when they weren't looking at it. So look at all this ritual here for nothing. But, she's an expert or something. And she's actually somebody I can't actually disagree with and keep my channel. We'll see how this happens.
I need to adjust it. And I'm just going to strike the wood with purpose, but not too hard. And I'm just adjusting my grip to see what feels good and what's giving me the clearest ring. And that's what a tap test is.
Now, if you guys If you guys ever seen what do you call the Texas Sharpshooter fallacy? There's a more formal name for this, but let's just go to this real quick. The Texas Sharpshooter fallacy is an informal fallacy where differences in data are ignored, but similarities are overemphasized. So this is confirmation bias, basically. You can keep moving your hand around on a piece of wood until you get it to ring the most. I'd like to see you do that with different species of wood and different examples of the same species of wood, even from the same tree, and see if you really get the results you think you're claiming to get here.
I'd love to hear what you guys have been tapping. Leave me a comment. When you're making or commissioning
did I say something snarky on here? No, I should. Anyhow, so let's look. So there's a special piece of wood out there. I guess there's some Belize mahogany tree that people cut up and made furniture out of, and I guess some famous guitars were made out of it or something. And so yeah, they actually do the tap test on this magical piece of mahogany.
So hopefully we should just be getting a relatively accurate representation of what the wood sounds like. Also, it is just a mic that kind of everybody knows. They're pretty much a studio staple. So it's the sort of thing where a lot of studios, you get the idea of basically what the wood will sound like. It's not sort of too specialist.
Ready?
Yeah.
Moment of truth.
This looks so much like. Have you ever watched those videos where the Chi Blast masters they're like these guys, so they call it traditional Chinese martial arts or traditional martial arts or something, and they claim like they have these magical the powers you see on Japanese cartoons, like they have like energy balls and they blast each other with them, and they have all these students that they like wave their hands around and the students like fall down onto the ground without touching them and stuff, and every once in a while one of these guys drinks his own Kool-Aid and thinks that the stuff actually works. Most of them know it's fake, so they're not going to mess around and fight somebody for real. And but every once in a while, these guys do this thing, and they just get the crap beat out of them. Man, I mean, it's not even pretty. Like let's see. Here's one. Let's see if one of these will show up. There's one of these guys where he like he's supposed to be getting chi blasted away, but he like just absolutely tackles this woman and she's dying, so he fakes his own death or something. It's oh yeah, here we go.
So keep your focus, keep your connection. So is there anybody who wants to try defending themselves? Well, it'll work, so it doesn't you really have to try. But is anybody ready? You're ready, actually, and you're ready.
You're scared.
You want to do this? It's like pushing forward. With a shout. You ready? Yes, come here. You don't have to touch. Can you come, Magnus and Rebecca?
And just like any mega church or just like any of these frauds, these chiropractors and whatever else, they always have this like escape hatch when they get caught with their nonsense, these homeopaths and anti-vaxxers and whatever else.
So if you stand here, and Magnus and Rebecca, you prepare her, and I don't know when I'm going to come, so you have to prepare her quick.
Look how serious all these people are. Which they should. If this was real, they wouldn't actually have to look this serious because they could just chi blast their way out of here. I'll probably get DMC or whatever. They're transforming.
In energin. Får in energin.
So here's all this ritual, like when they do their tonewood tap and their like reach over your head and pinch it with 80% up or whatever. So here's the ritual, magic ritual. People like to make fun of like ancient cultures and say, oh man, I would never fall for any of these kind of like, I wouldn't have these crazy chicken dance, whatever, behead the chicken and sprinkle blood all over its place ritual. But people do the same damn ritual right now.
Ner. Yes.
And so he just decked her, right? And so she's laying on the ground. So of course he knows he's just got caught. So what are you gonna do? What do you do when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar like this? Just absolutely busted, especially when you were dumb enough to have a documentary crew filming this stuff. What do? What do all frauds do? Take a look. This is so pathetic. Look, say you're sorry, give their money back. I was a liar, I was a fraud. This is all fake. I'm getting people hurt for no reason. I'm stealing their money. Just give it back. Get the hell out of here.
Where were you guys?
So now he's gonna blame everybody else. So
guys?
anybody got like what was like the game? It wasn't Sharon Osbourne, right? It was like the sister of some other like famous Simpson or something. Like she got busted for playing over like cassette or a taped vocal recording track, and so she blames her band when it gets caught. Hey, Hard Left Productions. Remember, it's like on a Saturday Night Live show or something. So she goes and yells at the band, just like this guy. Where were you guys? Where were you? Where's your chi blast, Mr. Dragon Ball Z? There's a couple of videos of these guys taking on MMA guys and just getting the crap beat out of them, which they deserve. Let's see. George Dillman, remember him? The soon stun gun. But let's see. Where's
It's time for a showdown. Fellow practitioner of the no-touch.
Had his tongue in the wrong business.
No Dillman.
Like us.
Yeah, see this guy. So he said he's $5,000. He'll take on an MMA fighter because he does these magical. Oh yeah, Jessica Simpson's sister. That's right. Or is that Jessica Simpson? Yeah, it's what is a Simpson? I think. So this guy says he take on this like MMA dude, and oh man, the Chinese government actually made life really bad for this guy when he proved what a fraud this knucklehead was. So here he is against a real fighter. So, magic chi blast, gathering the energy to shoot the fireballs out of his hand. Zap, 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 zap. Oh, he didn't get zapped. Damn. Now, real physical force, it does things. He's like, dude, you're old. You don't want to keep going, dude. I don't want to beat the crap out of you. But, of course, you know how this is going to go. So anyway, here's the ritual. And don't pretend this is any different.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit underwhelmed here. I think I was expecting something magical because of the power of marketing, and I have read on the internet that this wood sounds extraordinary. And Hugo actually pointed out that the attack was great, as was the bass response. But if I was ordering a tree guitar, I'd do it for the look and not the sound. If a luthier does their job right, they can make any wood sound great.
There you go. So that's all that matters, and it kind of throws away every video that this girl's made on the subject. If the luthier is any good, you can make any wood sound great, including cardboard, including carbon fiber, including metal, including plastic, including resin. That's really what it's about. And how many times have we talked about this video from Jim Lill, where he takes this guitar, not a guitar, so he puts a pickup and a bridge on one table and runs a string across to another table where he has a nut and some tuners, and it just sounds like any other guitar. It's a really good video. It's called Tested. Where does the tone come from in an electric guitar? Go take a look at this video. This is one of the best videos you'll ever see on any of this. And yeah, Chi Blast versus boot to the head. I'm betting on the boot to the head every time. But this is really what it comes down to. Is it's an electric guitar. It's a motor. There's tiny bits of difference the wood might make. We actually talked a couple of weeks ago about some papers that sort of showed this, but the reason I'm saying not even wrong is any of the tests that have actually been shown on YouTube. Now there's one paper that seems like it had a decent methodology, but it really didn't come up with what you think it was going to come up with. But anyway, so let me go down to this one right here. So this is all right. This is a beardo, and he's got an accent, so obviously he's right about stuff. I can't actually. I don't know that I've ever watched a video of this guy that I really like that much, but it says acoustic tone woods, why it matters. Let's see if I can speed this one up so we don't get DMCA'd here. Foam-filled aluminum shell, tone foam. Well, that if it's an acoustic guitar, I think that's going to make a difference. You could dampen it.
It was right there. I just picked it up. Okay, so now on topic. So what you're about to hear is the same chord on the same guitar fitted with the same top. The only difference? The tone woods for the back and sides. Yeah, baby.
All right. So hopefully you already see here. Made the claim the only difference? Not even. There are so many differences already. He's most likely picked this different. I like that one of these tests, the guy actually came up with this thing so you could pretty much pick it the same. There's no way in hell that he's at the same distance from the microphone here, unless he's using like a pickup or something, which maybe, but let's have a look at this again.
Yeah, baby. Okay, so now on topic. So what you're about to hear is the same chord on the same guitar fitted with the same top. The only difference? The tone woods for the back.
Okay, remember that. The only difference. Not the only difference, but we just said that. Let's watch this again.
And sides. Yeah, baby.
Okay, right. Let's look at watch his right hand and his thumb, okay?
Yeah, baby. Welcome to part 2 of the ultimate.
So, is this the same guy from that girls like tonewood tapping video? Looks like the guy on the right here. I don't know. Oh, Paul can play and has a great voice. Yeah, I don't know. I saw some stuff from him that's pretty questionable.
It's an acoustic guitar comparison video.
I'm sick of beardos, man. So sick of beardos. It's like you're not legit unless you got a beard.
In part 1 we looked at all the body shapes, I'm sure you've seen it, and now we're looking at the most controversial topic for guitars, the tone woods. We start out with comparing the different woods used for the back and sides of the guitars, and the differences are huge. Then we take a look at the top woods, and again I did not know this had such an impact on the sound. Let's go.
So there's a lot of claims here. Let's see if they actually show us any evidence for this.
So first we're gonna listen to the differences between Rosewood and Mahogany, and I'd love to hear your first reaction. Leave them in the comment section because I'm in for a hot debate.
Yeah, right there, that sounds like a mic change to me. When you have like a giant shift in the mids like that. But it could be the guitar, could be totally thicker piece. I mean, listen, this isn't electric guitar pickup, so the construction matters, but I don't think that the species is going to matter here as much as the density of the wood itself. I'm betting that if you get two pieces of wood that are the same size, same shape, same dimensions, and same density, they're going to sound the same because you know what? The carbon fiber sounds exactly like some of these other wood guitars. I mean, one of the reasons I say not even wrong here is that we're talking about one sample per wood. Like if you had 100 of these guitars made and the type of tonal shift, and again, you're not going to sit there and play it like that. Forget that. That's not going to be a measurement. Stick that thing in a stand so that you get it in the same spot every single time, and you have some kind of thing that picks for you. If we saw the same tone patterns across 100 of these guitars versus 100 of some other species guitar, then I'll believe you. But you're talking about a sample size of 1 here.
Most commonly used, you've got mahogany and rosewood, Indian rosewood. Mahogany has that very, very specific characteristic where it has a lot of gray mids, so you can always hear it very well in a mix. Vox.
Well, isn't that funny that the mids were stronger in the rosewood guitar comparison?
AC30, with EL84 tubes is very much what a mahogany does. It cuts right in the middle. But if you switch to the rosewood, it's like rosewood is like a very good red wine. It's got more lows, it's got more highs, less mids, a more delicate sound. And
That's not what we heard at all, was it?
And I always compare it to a Fender Twin Reverb. There's a lot of sound. If you have to describe mahogany, it cuts right through. It has that specific projection. It's got a lot of mid. Doesn't have that much lows. So it really is always audible in any kind of circumstance.
Always audible. I would bet piles that, well, you know, he may just mean it's always audible because it always cuts through the mix, which again is, I don't think is a characteristic of the species of wood, but I doubt this guy could pick between these two in a recording. I would be willing to bet quite a bit of this. Yep. So Boudin just saying, when I bought my first acoustic, they had 10 of them identical. I picked out the one I liked that sounded the best. Everyone was a different serial number, and they were nearly sequential. So he's saying there's 10 different guitars. There's so many things that when you're talking about a sound chamber, which is what an acoustic guitar really is, right? I mean, you're kind of talking about a speaker. The guitar becomes its own speaker. There's so many things that could make the same exact guitar sound different. It's easily come down to wood density. How much glue? How did they use the glue? Yeah, explain that to them.
That's funny.
Easily recordable, and that's really what mahogany does. When you go to rosewood, there's much more low. Really,
now,
what mahogany does.
Let's look at this.
When you go
they're saying this
rosewood,
is the same guitar.
And that's really what mahogany does. When you go to rosewood, there's much more low. Really, what mahogany does. When you go to rosewood, there's much more low to start with. It's got less
really
mids,
the same
and
guitar?
it's got more highs. So the range, the dynamic range of a rosewood guitar is always going to be bigger than a mahogany one.
The dynamic range of a rosewood guitar is always going to be bigger than a mahogany one. That's a claim. That is a seriously testable claim. Let's do they actually prove that? I doubt it.
We all love the D18 as a strummer. It's like a strummer's favorite. The mahogany sort of serves the chords so beautifully. Just works so beautiful with that mid-range. For the rosewood, it's you hear the top end, just that crisp on top. If that's something you're after, I think that crisp is something to look for, and you will find that
I would
crisp
love to
more in
ABX
rosewood
test
than
these guys. on
Yeah,
these
and
two
then the
guitars.
lows, of course. The lows are just, but that's sometimes, and I always say you have like rosewood people, and
So usually this tonewood stuff just ends up in a God of the Gaps debate. Acoustic is a little bit different because there are like things that could actually matter. But again, I don't think it's ever going to be the species of wood.
mahogany people. Where all my life, I've always, even blindfolded, I always went for the mahogany guitar.
Even blindfolded, he says so. Like, I'd like to test this.
That's funny.
That is it, because
You notice most of these videos, they don't really show any kind of testable anything. They'll play things back to back, which is nice because you got a listening test. But if anybody remembers the early days DAW summing wars where they're saying that different digital audio workstations sum differently, there was some truth to certain like really pathological cases, but people were saying that two DAWs that actually nulled, like they produced exactly the same output, like if you flipped one out of phase, they would both be muted. They were saying that they sounded different. So my thing is always, before I even bother with the listening test, usually I want to make sure there's actually something different. If it's exactly the same, I don't care about the listening test because it's irrelevant. People will hear things they're not supposed to hear. It's audio pareidolia.
it's so personal.
Yeah. I think it depends on what kind of player you are.
All this flowery language.
If you play in a
and just
band, you might
avoiding-
favor a different kind of guitar. I play a lot of solo guitar because, you know, I'm...
All right, so let's see. Come on. Yeah, I mean, you can see from just even this picture. Just even that picture shows you that in one, look at the distance between the acoustic guitar and the plant here, okay? Now, anybody who's ever used a microphone to record anything, you know that that difference in position is worth like turning on and off 15 different EQs. You know, that's a huge difference. Just moving a mic a degree. Like, especially put it on a guitar cabinet and watch, just barely tilt your mic and play, or put two mics and just see that how different it is just to change the mic a millimeter or a degree. And this is a huge change.
But maple is something that is often used on the jumbo size. The maple is much lighter in tone and gives...
Lighter in tone. What does lighter in tone mean? Like, does that mean more trebly? I used to think that maple fingerboards were brighter on electric guitars, but I was wrong. Sorry about that.
A nice counterbalance to that. So you got the 17-inch big body, and at the same time the maple evens that up.
So this is the maple back, and I'm sure we can all see the differences now because maple just looks so different than the rest. Of course, maple usually it's white, so this one is stained.
Yeah,
right?
it's stained, but it's got the flame.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where here you see on the mahogany, it's got the vertical grain.
Just the
Where
look of it.
maple, if you have a nice flamed maple, it's always going to be horizontal.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So we heard the differences between mahogany and rosewood all the time, but now we also have maple in the mix.
And note the difference in position of the guitar. Okay, so Simon Larkin's saying, I did an acoustic guitar building course 5 years ago given by a top Swedish luthier, and he taught us that the biggest effect on how an acoustic guitar sounds is the bracing. Okay, this is a good one because there's a video of some pitched drums, and they show, like, you know, we're tired of hurting, you know, killing the lungs of the world, which is chopping down trees. Can we use plastic? Can we use carbon fiber? And they did some actual fiberglass instead of wood. And but it was about the same density, about the same size, and it sounded totally different. And then when the guy put the same bracing between what was functionally the drum head, in this case it wasn't a removable head, but between the body of the drum and the drum head, it ended up sounding like exactly the same. If you're blindfolded, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And again, the acoustic guitar body, as far as I know, especially the board that the bridge is on and that the top of the neck's attached to, I don't know what you call it, the soundboard or whatever. That is a speaker. Your guitar is a speaker. So things that would affect the speaker would likely affect the guitar, but different species of wood, again, I know people are claiming it, but like in a speaker cabinet, it's really not going to affect the speaker sound that much. I mean, until, again, we're talking about mechanical things. If you start having mechanical problems, then yeah. But move a guitar 2 inches, man, forget it. That's a microphone. Microphones are insanely finicky about a millimeter, never mind a couple inches.
Okay, so maple.
Yeah, well, the good thing with maple is that it's got a very light tone. There's
See, you guys all got beards and they use all the weasel words.
less bass, there's
must be
more
right.
highs. So that means, for instance, on the AC guitars, so that like what I always say, like the stage guitars, it's very good because there's a pickup in this guitar. So if you're on stage, you can be assured that with a maple back and sides, you have way less problems with feedback, stuff like that. So it's also very practical to use it on a guitar like that.
I'd like to test this too. I don't know what he means by light tone.
The sound is very different from mahogany and rosewood.
Really?
And because these guitars are all exactly the same with exactly the same specs apart from
the backs.
That's it.
So the maple in an acoustic situation would deliver a little bit more highs, a little less low end.
Yeah, more projection probably.
Let's
I
see
think on this
let's see some
guitar.
tests. Let's see you put this guitar down, put some measurement mics up, and show these differences you're playing here. I have a spoiler alert. Not that I've watched this, but I will almost guarantee that they've done no actual proof whatsoever. Let's see.
I've never held them this close together, and you can actually tell the difference quite easily if you zoom in on the instruments a little bit. One is very straight grained and very narrow, and wow, that's even bigger than I thought, the difference. So much more volume, but also a little less rounded off, a little bit more screamy is a bad word.
I'm used on manufacturer uses 80% of their
You just
build.
can't go wrong with Sitka
No,
spruce.
absolutely.
It is what you expect from a guitar. Then
more volume. About the majority. We're talking about 80% of the guitars. I mean,
the maple produces more highs in his mind because the wood is a lighter color. Hey, that was me too. I always thought, because they always gloss the maple, that it's going to make more treble through an electric guitar pickup. But, you know, it's just dumb of me. Sorry.
Together, I can make
again. So no real tests, no actual measurements, no apples to apples comparisons. Just a bunch of claims by a couple beardos. Again, Jim Lil, this is the definitive video to me. If let's see if we can find yet another one. The Basics of Tonewood from Martin Guitars. I don't think you need to bother with this. Here's looks like you know, like these mega church guys that do these gigantic recording studios, and they have like I don't know if these guys are actually part of one of these mega churches, but this really looks like one. Alamo Music Center. Okay, someone actually sent me this one. They got some pushback in the comments, but let's just.
So the question is, do tonewoods matter on electric guitars, Chris?
Well, the answer is complicated.
The answer is clickbait, and then we're gonna play all this crap in front of it. But I know this is how you guys make your money and stuff. But God, this shit drives me nuts. Let's see if they're actually got any conclusions here. See, the question is, does wood matter on electric guitars? I'd say yes. You don't want termites to have eaten your wood. You don't want the wood so wet that it's going to move around too much. You don't want it cracked, and you want it mechanically sound. That's for damn sure. I wish we weren't using wood. I really want to get away from using wood. Those Gittler guitars are like $9,000. I'm not buying that. I don't have that kind of money, but I would like to just use a metal guitar or whatever, something that's not wood. I don't like hoping that my guitar stays in tune, and I don't like that when I lay my guitar on its back, it's a different tuning than when I'm holding it straight up and down. It's ridiculous. Get out of that. This is not the year for that anymore. We got better techniques.
Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music Center and turn on notifications, t-shirts, and I've already forgotten.
So, yeah, the question is, boxers or briefs, Chris?
Boxer briefs.
It's the only way to go. No, the question is, does the wood of an electric guitar matter? Now, we talked about, does paint color matter? And that was a total troll that made a lot of people upset. But the real question, the woods. A lot of people ask.
Does it matter?
So, yeah, we got to talk about it.
All right, so if you're asking a keyboard commando on the internet, they might answer no. If someone spent a lot of money.
It depends what the question is. You can go ahead and call him a keyboard commando, but keyboard commando might be right.
On a very precious guitar with special tone woods and stuff.
Karina?
Sure. They will probably answer yes.
Yeah, so there we go, the sunken cost fallacy, right?
And if you ask me, not being a guitar builder, but geeking out and picking the brains of lots of them, my answer is it's complicated. And it also depends upon what you mean by doesn't matter. So, does it matter aesthetically?
So we get into what is. So yeah, let's spell out what we're talking about. Are we talking? Most of you guys are here because you want to hear about this tonewood stuff, but it should go without saying that yeah, it would be bad if there were living termites in your wood.
Yes. Does it matter based upon weight or feel? Yes. Stability? Yes. But the big question is, does the wood on an electric guitar matter when it comes to tone? That's really the big question. What do you think?
I think it does to a certain extent. You know, I think when it gets down to it, so I chose these because it's a real stark difference. We got an alder.
Yeah, not the wood. Don't even say because these are different wood. Okay, you guys out there that know what this stuff, we're looking at a Les Paul and a Strat. Okay, one of these things has a single coil pickup right off the bat. Single coil versus humbuckers. Is that going to sound different? Change the wood. Change to no wood. Change to plastic. Change to air like Jim Lill did. The pickup is going to absolutely blow the crap out of any possible difference any of this stuff is. I mean, gargantuanly. A single coil is going to sound way the hell different than this humbucker. The other thing, these are different scale lengths. The pickups are placed in different places. A pickup is not a microphone, but some things have an analog to a microphone. Do you notice that both these guitars, one of these guitars has two pickups and they're in two different places. The Strat has three pickups in three different places. There's a reason they have different pickups. It's not because they're using different sounding pickups, which sometimes they do actually. But if you, boy, this is hard to. I wish I had a big rope I could show it. When a guitar string vibrates, when you pluck the string and it oscillates and whatever, the changes near the bridge are very small. Like it doesn't have much swing down there. The string's not moving very far back and forth when you're down near the bridge. Up near the neck, the neck joint, you're almost in the middle of the guitar. So the string is at its widest point. If you've ever played jump rope, or better yet, if you've watched somebody, the 3-person kind of jump rope, the middle has this big, huge loop, and the ends where people are holding on to it, it's just the tiniest little twirl. And so where you put that pickup has a huge difference on how that string is talking to the pickup. And so already we're in total different land. And I'm hoping he's not saying because these are two different types of wood. Hold on, let's back up a little bit.
It's down to it. So I chose these because it's a real stark difference. We've got an alder body, and we've got a mahogany body with a maple cap.
I don't know if you guys want me to keep going after that one, but let's take a look. So, yeah, it ain't the alder body, it ain't the mahogany body.
You can't see it under the gold top, but there's maple cap on here. Definitely matters. Totally different vibe, different weight, different sustain, different feel. The reason I want to talk about it is sometimes people call and they're wondering, like on a Strat, alder, ash, pine.
Yeah.
I think there's less of a difference there. I don't think that.
I think you got that right. I think there's no difference there, but it's okay.
Matters as much. I think once you get to a similar family of woods, a similar density, same body style, maybe not as much of a big deal. This is a big deal, I think.
Yeah, so let's talk about what most people would answer that don't think tone woods matter. Most people on the internet would say, no, the pickups are really what determine the sound.
Yes.
And that's partly true, but it's not the whole story. So can we just kind of geek about it? Like, can we just get into it and like
gotta do it.
Get nerdy?
You
Okay.
gotta do it.
Now, I'm going to extend the principle of charity here. This guy's not about to Dunning-Kruger out, so let's see.
So let's talk about these two first of all, because it's a great example of tone woods. This is alder, maple neck, maple fingerboard, right? It's a bolt-on body, okay?
Yeah.
That is a set neck, mahogany neck, rosewood fingerboard, mahogany body, maple cap.
Glue on.
Okay?
Glue on
now,
neck.
we should talk about the history of these two guitars. When these started, Leo Fender was making tellies with pine, then with ash. Later he used alder. And his decisions for doing that was based upon availability and workability. Okay?
Yeah. So, not the sound. Didn't give a crap. Could use pine, could use whatever. Some of those super valuable, rare early tellies were pine. So all this kind of, yeah. Some guys don't like 24 fret guitars because it pushes the neck pickup further back. Right. So if you're after that maximally round whatever talent, I hate to use that kind of word, but it's kind of a thick. You'll hear it in certain Iron Maiden songs. You can kind of get it from any guitar by turning the tone knob down and playing in kind of the upper frets. A 22 fret or 21 fret guitar, like the Strat, that sound seems to start someplace around between like the 11th fret and maybe the 13th or 14th fret. On a 24 fret guitar, normally, at least for the neck pickup, that sound kind of starts more like the 14th fret and maybe up to the 17th fret. So and then I have a 29-inch guitar where, oh man, that sound is weird. It's down there in like the 9-inch, 9th fret or so. It's really low. It's a 29-inch scale length 7-string, and it's way lower. So I don't know if this is consistent. It's what I've found in the guitars that I've worked with, but there could be more to it than that. But that's what I've found. But I see why somebody might not like a 24 fret guitar because of that. Because that sound seems to move up the neck there.
The story goes from Ted McCarty that at Gibson, they used a maple cap to bring out brightness in the sound of the guitar. Now, we know that there were early all mahogany Les Pauls, but most Les Pauls are maple with this cap. SGs, which was the Les Paul of the early 60s, and then the SG, is all mahogany, and it's thinner, and it's got maybe the same pickups and a slightly different tone. So what does that tell us? If an SG can have...
Does it really have a different tone, though? I don't know that that's true. I would like to put the same pickups in a Les Paul and an SG and see if we're really getting that different tone. I used to think that tellies were like super bright, and then I put the same telly pickups in a Strat and I got the same sound, so I don't know.
Have a similar construction to this, similar, not the same, and have with the same pickups a dramatically different tone.
Are they the same pickups? And is it a different tone? Like you're claiming
Is it the wood that's being used? Is it because it's thinner and doesn't have a metal cap that it has a slightly different tone? So here's the first thing that I think guitar players need to appreciate about pickups. Pickups are microphones. Effectively. That's
okay. Depending on how pedantic we want to get, there's a lot of reasons that a pickup is not a microphone. You can talk into a pickup. In some cases, I can do it on some of my guitars. And we call that microphonic, but it's not the same reason that a microphone acts like that. A microphone measures the difference in air pressure across its capsule. So it's being moved by the air compressing and expanding. And it's basically a microphone is a speaker. It's just backwards. It's instead of putting out sound, it's taking in sound. But it's the same thing. You're vibrating a speaker with air. And then you're getting electrical output. In fact, we used to use in fact, all the Me Too's use these like Yamaha sub kick things where it's just a speaker in front of a kick drum, and they use that for miking the drums. We used to use bass guitar cabinets for that. So a speaker can be a microphone. A pickup is the same thing as you got in your car that we call an alternator. It's converting energy is made by breaking a magnetic field. In the case of an alternator, you're making like rotary motion around a magnet. in the guitar, you're going back and forth. You're reciprocating across a magnet. You're breaking a magnetic field and turning that into an electrical current or electrical energy, whatever. It's not a microphone. And there's a lot of things that microphones do that pickups don't do. And there's a lot of things that pickups do that microphones don't do. You don't pick up the sound of harmonics because of differences in air pressure. If you're picking up harmonics, it's because that magnetic field is getting moved a certain way. And I think it's been shown a couple times. There's a couple different videos out there where what we call a microphonic pickup is really just the coils being moved the same way they're inducting. See, so Simon's saying the reason Gibson uses mahogany and maple is because that's what they traditionally used to make mandolins out. So they carried on using the stock they had, nothing to sound. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that, or like the pine early on, because that was what the guy could get for Fenders or whatever.
That's all a pickup is. A microphone is an electromagnet. Mm-hmm. It's a coil that's picking up vibrations. In a different design, that's what a pickup is doing. And with some of the early, some real sensitive pickups, you can sing into them.
Yeah.
And it picks it up. It picks up.
It's not because you're varying the air pressure into a speaker. That's you're actually bouncing the coils around.
Vibrations of your voice.
Or some of these microphonic pickups, take the strings off and see if you can still sing through it. Okay.
So if they're microphones, then all they're doing is they're picking up what's going on with the strings.
No. Microphone is picking up differences in air pressure.
Picking them up in different ways. A single coil, a P90, a Jazzmaster pickup, a humbucking pickup, PAF style, active. All of these things are variations upon the same idea. And all they're doing is picking up what the string's doing. Now, with microphones, you and I know we sing, right? Yeah. If you sing into different microphones, your voice will sound slightly different.
Oh, yeah.
But you still sound like Cooper Greenberg.
You have to.
Right?
Yeah.
You can put effects on that voice, but you still sound like Cooper Greenberg, right? It's kind of the same way. People need...
I would say this analogy is going pretty bad. If you... Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than this, but... You can get a very similar sound out of different people as long as you got the same guitar with the same pickup in it.
You need to think of guitars in this way. Is the pickups are microphones, and so you can change pickups, but there's a fundamental that's there that those pickups are amplifying.
There is, but only insofar as you're talking about scale length and where you put that pickup, again, and the rest of the electronic circuit, if we really want to get pedantic, but it's where you put that pickup on the string, how long is the string, what pitch is that string. That's what matters. So that's the fundamentals. I mean, if you're going to say that the fundamentals are something else, like say the shape of the guitar or the species of wood the guitar is made out of, you're going to have to bring some actual evidence for that, because that seems counter to anything in reality.
And that fundamental doesn't change.
Yeah.
So the other reason that these are great guitars is because not only are they different tone woods, but they are entirely different designs. The bolt-on neck and the longer scale length of this, along with the fact that this is a tremolo, a floating tremolo equipped guitar, is going to inherently change how these strings behave and what components in the guitar have on the string. So here's what I will say. Start off, what things affect it the most? So I think the construction, like scale length, that's a shorter scale length, right?
So I still, we've done some scale length measurements, tests, things like that. And I've watched a lot of videos on this, and there are things that I can show consistently that do change with scale length, especially when you're talking about a big difference in it. But there are things that don't seem to matter. So it's hard. The scale length thing is hard. But I think when we're talking about where we're putting a pickup, it's definitely a variable that should be controlled for.
We've talked on this video with acoustics before that shorter scale lengths tend to be warmer for a bunch of reasons. I've been talking on email with a customer about this, about why shorter scale lengths are, and I'm trying to articulate things I've heard from builders because they understand it better.
And like we just saw in a couple of videos ago, don't trust the builders. They don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. They know how to build guitars. They know how to fix guitars. They seem to have a very tenuous grasp on physics or reality for that matter a lot of times. I mean, I'm sure there's good ones out there, but
better than I do. But you know, when you shorten the scale, the frets get closer together, so the harmonics along the string on its vibrating length get closer together. And you know, if you pick closer to the bridge, it's brighter. If you pick over here, it's warmer. Yeah. If you play, a B up here versus a B over here, it's totally different sound. So all of that comes into play. So with a longer scale length, it's a bit brighter. There's more tension on the strings. That's going to come through in the pickups. If I put humbucking pickups in this, if I take those pickups out and put them in this will not sound like that guitar.
It'll sound pretty close, though. That's kind of the crazy part about that. We've actually done that one, but we did do some tests with different size strings, and so that you could end up with the same tension or different tensions. And I was surprised by some of the things we found about the different string sizes. In many cases, the smaller the string, the higher the output, which is not something that I really expected.
And vice versa.
Yeah. You can take that'd look weird, right? Take a pick guard with 3 single coils and slap it on.
I don't want to see that
on a Les Paul. It will sound different.
Yeah.
It won't sound like a Strat because of the scale length and because of the neck, the bridge. Like how much a Les Paul sustains is part of its tone. So think about this. I was talking to a friend of ours this morning about this. If an acoustic guitar's tone, in part, is inherently equal parts of like the body's response and things, but part of it is sustain, right? If it was really loud with no sustain, it'd sound like a banjo. If it
that's an interesting thing to say, and that's if we're working on something. If you've ever looked at a 3D room plot where you're looking at time versus level versus frequency, sustain could have a drastic effect on how you perceive that tone, because things are dying and ringing at different lengths and different times and different volumes.
Sustained, if you struck an acoustic guitar note and it sustained as long as a Les Paul, it'd be weird. It wouldn't sound like you expect an acoustic guitar to sound. So these characteristics and attributes are part of it. And so I think that design plays a really, really big role in what it sounds like. I think there's other things like the saddles and the nut. These are the things other than your pick or your fingers.
In contact.
Right, that are having direct contact. More so the saddles, because think about it. Once you bar a chord, it's now the fret wire and the saddles that are making contact.
Yeah.
So that'll affect things. Stainless steel frets versus nickel silver frets, bent steel saddles, block saddles, all of that stuff. Bone nut, synthetic nut.
I'd like to see just how much of a difference some of this stuff makes. This can be like other recording stuff that you guys are used to, where sure, this one interface has 6 decibels less self noise than another one, but both of them are so far down there that you'd actually never hear it above the noise in your room. And so it kind of doesn't matter. Like it could be that there's a big, huge difference between a bone nut and a brass nut that you can measure, but it's so far below the audible stuff that matters that it's of no consequence.
How much it's dampening or fraying things. So how do you understand tone?
Wow.
Like how
philosophical question.
Well, okay, so maybe let me put it to you this way. If you play different guitars and they have different tones, how do you describe that?
For me, and I'm sure that a lot of people are the same, I kind of think of it as like a shape. And I don't know if that comes from seeing certain graphics in like a recording, mindset. But
like
you
the
can
oscilloscope or a graphic EQ.
So, sometimes maybe it comes from synths with like a triangle wave versus square wave and all that, and sawtooth. But I think a lot of times I think about a Strat as a very round, more narrow tone. I think about this as kind of this bulky, almost squared off tone, and it's like it's definitely just influenced by words that we use. You know, we use chunky, we use creamy.
So some of these comments here. This guy, Otis. Until the tonewood cultist can correctly identify a guitar's wood by ear, then no. And that's something we've claimed a million times, right? Where let me see you guys actually pick this stuff out. So this guy says, imagine not knowing you're listening to a Gittler guitar, an electric guitar that's basically a titanium tube with no wood at all, and claiming you can hear the tonewood resonance characteristics. Lol. I wouldn't be surprised at all if people said that stuff. Let's see. Everything affects tone. So this is a good question. If you had 10 of the exact same models of guitars, would the tonewood sound any different? If so, then it's all relative. And that's what I say. You could have 10 of the same one, like we've seen Poo Ninja talking about his acoustic, you know. That's really what it's all about. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see.
You know, there's different
bristle. That's
there's all kinds of words the tone is.
Right, and there's a lot of
It's already been a
commonalities that
very
we
long one.
kind of hear across certain styles, range
Let's
to it, that aren't there, and you get kind of the smoother ash, or it's roasted pine.
Yeah.
And the decision Fender is making is solely about aesthetics in that regard.
Yeah.
So at the beginning I said, does tonewood matter? On aesthetics it does, on weight it does.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, you build this out of mesquite and it'll look great, but it'll weigh 50 pounds.
Yeah.
I want a mesquite guitar.
So.
Yeah, it's tough because some people get so attached to, well, I want an ash body. Because, I mean, I got a ash body natural Telecaster. I love that guitar. And then if you wanted a natural Telecaster now, you're going to get a roasted pine body.
Pickups. And they're probably very much right.
Yeah.
You know, that's where most of it goes. I still think that
we're interested in an ash Les Paul.
It'll be an African mahogany body, but that's for our podcast if you listen to it.
Boom.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that design choice by Fender says that Fender feels that most of what your tone is going to be is the work that they've done crafting the design of the guitar and in the pickups.
Yeah.
And they're probably very much right.
Yeah.
You know, that's where most of it goes. I still
I'm not
love going out there. It's a lot of fun. You're dialed in. Suddenly you're
I'm not seeing
homework.
It's page.
Yep.
It matters on the aesthetics.
I think we've beaten this one to death again, but I'm sure somebody will send me another goddamn tonewood video. You want to see one that matters? Watch this Jim Lill video. Tested where does the tonewood come from in an electric guitar. So he makes his air guitar, makes a 2x4 guitar. Let's see him play this air guitar thing.
Bench with 2x4s so the strings don't pull the shelf closer to the bench when tuned up.
I'm sure
the
somebody's going to say,
headstock is a piece of wood with tuners put in it.
Together matters.
The nut is the bottom half of a metal locking nut meant to go with the Floyd Rose type bridge. 25.5 inches away are the steel saddles on the steel top-loaded bridge with a Seymour Duncan vintage stack mounted in the plate and all of that screwed into the bench. The pickup is I matched their pickup heights. Here are the things that the Anderson and the air guitar had in common. Tuning, strings, scale length, pickup distance to strings, pickup position along the strings, pickup slant angle, and effective volume pop value. In the future, I'll be looking deeper into these factors. Hopefully you'll join me.
Yeah, it's just, I'm sure there's some crazy comments. Anyway, you really want to see something, go check out this guy's videos. He does a really good one on speaker cabinets too. And speaking of which, I just had a friend build, we were talking about last week, a dual cabinet to Celestion specs for their FR speaker, the F12 X200. And I got to tell you, Actually, let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find some pictures of this guy. I think I put it in the amps and cabs section. Wow, this one goes fast. Maybe I should search. Hold on. Let's see. I like to do thread started by, but I'm gonna search this by date. Let's see. Here we go. So I actually built some of these. I had my friend Jim build these anyway. So I thought I needed a dual just to keep up volume wise with a drum set and everything. And this thing ends up actually about the size of like those bigger Bogner 2x12 cabinets. It's a little bit bigger than like a Mesa Boogie 2x12 cabinet. It's about the same width. It's a little bit taller, maybe a little bit deeper. It's not heavy, but the thing was, I actually had to unplug one of these speakers because it is so ungodly loud with just one. So if you're going to be building these things, you want to make a Celestions FR setup. I would seriously recommend building one first. And if you think you need another one, make like a way you can attach them together or something. I just want a single now. This is so ungodly loud. It blows my mind. The beauty is that this sounds, what I get in my control room in the studio, I get my guitar sound exactly the way I want it to sound. When I take it out into the big room to practice with the band, it sounds just like that. It sounds more like it than a PA speaker. But I think that has more to do with the concentric tweeter. But God, it sounds great. I would like a different design of the cabinet, maybe slanted to put the speaker where I need it more. If anybody knows how to redesign this cabinet for that, please let me know, because I would love to make a single that's slanted. And yeah, I'm blown away by how good this cabinet sounds. It's just that it's so damn big. It's not as big as a 4x12, but it's big. So I would like it smaller. So anyway, I'll see you guys